Welcome back to DAO Talk Weekly. This is DAO Talk Weekly episode number 33, your one-stop shop for everything DAOs. I'm Tommy.
And I'm Frisson.
Let's get into the DAO week that was, starting right along with some news from the Uniswap Foundation. Things are starting to heat up. Things are starting to heat up with the Uniswap Foundation. We've talked about them before in their previous funding round. Frisson, give us a little overview about what's happening out of the Optimism Foundation and why it matters for DAOs.
Overall, I would say Uniswap governance is heating up. I think it was pretty sleepy for a while there, but they made an investment in the Uniswap Foundation to try to create some dedicated positions to prioritize governance initiatives and help kind of shepherd things through the process. And so one of the things that they're doing is taking advantage of clear opportunities for the Uniswap DAO to get involved in other DAOs. And this is really common, especially with larger DAOs. People talk about DAO to DAO relationships. We had a Content Guild contributor, Emma Kwan, write about this recently on the Tally blog. But basically, Uniswap is a major stakeholder in Optimism because the Uniswap exchange, the Uniswap DEX, is a heavily used product in Optimism, and Optimism has a bunch of programs to incentivize projects to build on Arbitrum, to build on Optimism, attract users to Optimism, and participate in Optimism governance. And so this is the Uniswap Foundation is helping kind of ensure that there's representation from the Uniswap community with the Optimism or OP tokens that they have to participate in Optimism governance. So it's an example of a DAO-to-DAO relationship. It's an example of where Uniswap, which is it's a major DAO, right? Because it's such a heavily used product, they have a huge treasury, is kind of stepping up activity and governance. I think there's more opportunities for people and projects to get involved with a Uniswap governance going forward.
All right, continuing right along with Uniswap Foundation, a tweet from the Uniswap Foundation themselves. Uniswap delegates, it's been a busy week in governance. A short thread on what's going on and where your voice and vote are needed below. Frisson, break down this thread for us. It's a little long, and there's a lot of proposals that are attached to it. What do we need to know? What is the most important thing to gain from this thread? Also, we will link the thread if you want to look at it yourself.
Like we said, Uniswap governance heating up. This is one of the most controversial activity-filled proposals in a minute. So this is actually an example of other DAOs and other Web3 projects selling to the Uniswap DAO. So the Uniswap community is looking to deploy Uniswap v3 to Binance Smart Chain. So a couple of foundational things to understand here. Uniswap v3 is the most current, most advanced version of Uniswap, and it's kind of dominated the DEX landscape. It's attracted, a dominant level of exchange, DEX decentralized exchange volume over the past year or so. And it was released under what's called a business source license, which is a type of open source licensure where it's not free to use the code, but it expires after a certain period of time. And that period of time where the Uniswap v3 license is going to expire is starting to come up. And when that happens, there's going to be this mass event where projects fork Uniswap v3 and deploy it with their own front end. So this is what originally happened with Uniswap v2 and what led to sudoswap and the Uniswap SushiSwap wars, ultimately Uniswap dropping a token. There's going to be another round of projects forking Uni v3 and deploying it. And this will definitely happen on Binance Smart Chain, which is it's basically a clone of Ethereum, but it's way more centralized and it's kind of tied into the overall Binance ecosystem. And it does have a good amount of activity on it. And so there's going to be sort of this rush to clone Uniswap v3 on Binance Smart Chain for sure. And so Uniswap is trying to get ahead of that by at least deploying their own version of Uniswap v3 on Binance Smart Chain, so that even though people are forking it and stuff, there is this sort of canonical Uniswap v3 on Binance Smart Chain. But the question becomes how to actually do that in a way that is secure and allows for Uniswap governance and Uniswap to continue functioning in a cross-chain way. And the TLDR is that this requires a multi-chain bridge, like cross-chain messaging protocol. And there's several well-funded omni-chain bridge teams that are also heavily backed by VCs who are also involved in the Uniswap governance, that basically went to war over this to be the provider of record for the Uniswap deployment on Binance Smart Chain. And yeah, it's crazy, man. It's so wild. It's like how enterprise sales processes work in Web 2, but it's through this like more open governance process. There's this thread that is just absolute chaos on their discourse. It's impossible to follow. There's like nested conversations on nested conversations. Everyone's like slinging FUD at each other. It's good stuff. So yeah, anyway, this is a big one kind of in the DeFi world and also in the omni-chain bridge world. And it's also like a fun example. We like it when the governance proposals are active. So I expect this, like a lot of the the politics and the alignment happens off chain right before it gets to tally, but I still expect this to be like a huge, contentious, super active vote when it actually goes on chain onto tally. So looking forward to that.
You mentioned like the not to use like this word, like the Discord, not the actual app, but like the verb, the noun Discord, around like this entire like process. What is the best way for someone who wants to understand, and maybe this is something that's interesting to them, like the way Uniswap Foundation is operating and debating and talking about these processes? What is the best way for them to like understand that and dive deeper? Is there really not like one place or one, maybe a thread or that's like breaking it all down, or is it really just to like jump into these governance proposal, these discourses, and just kind of like unpack it all? Because it feels like it's almost like the barrier to entry here, and I think this is for like a lot of large protocol DAOs, is like basically impossible for the average person to like get a full grasp of like understanding, because that's kind of what's required in order to have like a educated opinion and for you to post and like kind of join the conversation. So like, what would you suggest? For instance, imagine I'm someone who wants to do that. Like, how would I go about doing that? If
It
you
is
have an answer.
absolutely it is absolutely harder than it should be. It's just hard currently. So at Tally, our focus is on chain governance, right? So we make the process, once there's a proposal, someone wants to actually create a proposal and vote on it, and then also delegation, so kind of the overall voting power on the proposal, like very clear, easy to use, easy to see, easy to understand what's going on. But this conversation we're having is in the messy world, like that's off chain before anything actually happens with governance. And I think there's a pretty clean analogy here to, like, if you think about how the US Congress operates, it's like there's this process that happens sort of like at the end, and it's like the most important part where like a bill actually gets voted on and potentially passed. And that's what's happening on Tally, and that's what's happening with on-chain governance. But in order for a bill to actually like make it to the floor to get voted on, there's this like huge process that happens prior to that that's not necessarily like visible to everyone. That is like between all these different Congress people and chairs of committees and heads and whips and people like that, to figure out like, okay, what's actually going to see the light of day right on the floor. And that's a pretty good analogy to what's happening here with this proposal, where it's like nothing has actually happened yet, right? But there's this like messy backroom negotiating politics process that's happening, that is like, it's more open than it is in a company, like, of course, like it would be for a normal sales process. But it's on discourse, but like it requires a huge amount of context, and in some cases maybe even relationships, to like actually understand what's happening. So I think the first answer is there is actually not an easy way to do that. I mean, you basically, like, someone's eventually going to make a thread, like Adam Cochran is going to be like 1 out of 69, the wars over bridging Uniswap to Binance Smart Chain, blah blah blah. And like you know, those resources are useful. I think a lot of times those people are like not as knowledgeable as their aggressive threading makes them seem, and also it tends to happen like late, right? Like you're gonna find out, you're finding about this from us, right? We're kind of like thread orienting about this right now live, but like to actually get involved, you kind of want to be like tapped in earlier, and like basically it just involves it means getting involved in Uniswap governance. To be honest, I do think there's like a product opportunity for Tally here, not necessarily to like facilitate the off-chain social coordination, but to like create some structure and connectivity between what is occurring in these off-chain processes and what ultimately actually happens with on-chain governance. But yeah, it's not something you know uh, that exists today. I think maybe someone will build this with the Tally API. When we launch the Tally API, you can sort of like create more of a connection between Tally proposals and discourse. But yeah, for now, it's definitely a bit messy.
Yeah, little preview. If this is not allowed to be said, then I will edit it out. But best social Tally API integration at ETH Denver, you win a nice chunk of change. If you're listening to this and you're a dev and you want to build exactly what Frisson just said, come through ETH Denver, win some money, and build the actual product. But I think that's a really sorry. Go ahead.
Five G's on the line. Come get it. Tally bounties. ETH Denver. Come see us.
You can buy a few little pudgies with that 5K bounty.
Yeah, you can. You can buy. You could have bought a lot of ETH, but now who knows? It might go to 10K next week. You're not gonna be able to get much ETH anymore with that. But still get a few little pudgies.
That is not financial advice. I'll put that disclaimer out there now, since Spurgeon did not. But staying
We
on
should we
top,
should we should make a pre-recorded thing that's like what we were talking about in a previous episode, where it's like, welcome to DAO Talk. If you take financial advice from Frisson and Tommy, first of all, don't do that. And second of
yo,
all, what is wrong with you?
that'd be really good. Like make it like the intro, kind of like over the music, and then have the music build in and then come back out. That'd be good. I like that. I like that. All right. Staying on topic though. Um, so I mean, I think the point here is like, unless you're willing to invest a lot of time into like understanding all of the relationships and the politics of Uniswap and Uniswap Foundation, then really you're not going to spend a lot of time in these discourse forums. I think you're going to spend time in a place like Tally, where, like you said, there is the opportunity to connect, what's happened previously to get to the point where they are voting on chain. Because right now on Tally, like I brought it up while you were talking, Frisson, but if you go to Tally, you can see some of these proposals have been passed or are pending execution, and you can read a little bit about what happened, how it went down, and then kind of what conclusion they've come to. It's a pretty easy summary, and you can click on past voting links and whatnot. But it's still requiring a lot of navigation and like chasing rabbit, or chasing what's the word, chasing like different like tangential conversations to kind of get the full picture of things. But I think if you're listening to this, you're like, well, why should I care about this if I'm not, super involved in Uniswap? Just go check out the proposals on Tally and what's been passed, what hasn't been passed, to get a full view of it.
I think that's actually a really good question, right? Like, why should you care about a Uniswap governance proposal? I think the short answer is for a lot of them, you shouldn't, but for some of them, you should. And it's because these DAOs are increasingly like big players in the crypto ecosystem. So, in the case of this Binance Smart Chain proposal, like maybe you're thinking about making a Uniswap V3 fork. Maybe you're involved in like the DEX ecosystem uh, on Binance Smart Chain. You need to understand how that's playing out. Maybe you're a bridge protocol and you want to get involved in this proposal. So I do think it's essential to use something like Tally to like just understand what's happening in governance at these DAOs, so which how to kind of like keep a pulse on, and what types of governance proposals are actually happening in these DAOs, so kind of where you need to stay tapped in and get involved as it applies to what you're doing in the space.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, why should you care? I mean, we started like I call it the super niche podcast that I've said all the time. Like, and it's kind of just becoming more and more important. I feel like, not to like tutor on horn, but like, why should you care about DAOs? Why should you care about these big protocols? It's like, well, these protocols are kind of like setting the stage for the next 5-10 years. If you or operating under the assumption that we're going to be around for the next 5 to 10 years. And you have the opportunity to kind of get an inside look into, how it's being made, how the big players are moving, how the big players are operating. And that's kind of goes back to the existential question of like, why DAOs? If DAOs are just, traditional organizations in a different way, like I think this is a huge reason why you should care about that. Because like you can see everything that's fucking happening, where typically you couldn't. And yeah,
like is Uniswap completely transparent in terms of like that pre-governance social coordination process? No. Is it 10, 100, 1,000x more transparent than like the average financial institution, which is what you would compare them to? Yes, it is. So a lot to be excited about here. By the way, before we get into tally stuff, there's one more thing I want to talk about. I just slacked it to you, so hopefully it doesn't mess up your overall hosting flow too much. But I just mentioned how kind of the DAO ecosystem is growing, and these DAOs like Uniswap are becoming bigger players in the overall ecosystem. I think one thing that we're going to see over really the next year to two is that rollups are going to become DAOs. And you're going to want to pay attention to rollup governance, rollup on-chain governance, and rollup governance in general to understand what's happening in that ecosystem. So this is Ethereum layer 2s, right? These are projects that are trying to create scalable blockchains on top of Ethereum. And in many ways, rollups are just like a specific type of smart contract on Ethereum, similar to a DeFi app or something like that. And so it kind of makes sense to govern upgrades via a DAO in the same way that it makes sense to govern like a big DeFi protocol upgrade via a DAO. And that process of doing upgrades via on-chain governance and via, OpenZeppelin Governor and Tally is actually part of the process of decentralization for rollups. So this is a bigger topic, but right now, most rollups, even though they're trying to sort of like, they're relying on Ethereum security, they're not necessarily like as trustless and as decentralized as Ethereum. And that's because there's still like various centralized parts of the rollup that are controlled by the team or a smaller security council, because it's kind of like training wheels. Like it's not like fully hardened and ready to be just like released out into the wild. But rollups are going to be competing over basically how decentralized they can be, how trustless they can be with each other over the next year or two. And so there's an organization called L2Beat that kind of like covers rollups, and they're creating like a metric framework for this that everyone's going to use. It's like stages, as you roll up in stage 0, 1, 2, 3, right? In terms of decentralization. And those later stages, like 2 and 3, like the most decentralized, the most mature, most trustless rollups, are going to end up having on-chain governance. So I actually like posted on this forum post on L2Beat to be like, hey, they mentioned this kind of stage of like upgrades are done via a time lock. And I kind of mentioned like, I think it's essential that not only are upgrades done in this way, but they're done trustlessly, right? So it's not like a centralized person is the only one that has the opportunity to propose an upgrade to the rollup. And the community has the ability to kind of like approve or check that process. So that's like, yeah, just kind of more relating to the conversation we have around like as DAOs mature, like Uniswap, there's going to be big moving and shaking things that happen in the ecosystem that happen through the DAO, right? So Uniswap V3 expiring, the implications of that, the BSL, the business source license expiring and the implications of that for Binance Smart Chain. Maybe it's going to be, rollups are enabling a new type of application on the rollup, and they have to upgrade the rollup to do that, and that's going to be happening through governance as well. So it's just another example, like, and really something to look out for over the next year or two is like these rollups becoming DAOs, probably the biggest DAOs or some of the biggest DAOs, and kind of governance being a big factor there as well.
So you're saying on-chain governance matters?
Yeah,
After
absolutely.
all this time?
Look, like we've talked about this, but DAOs are inevitable. Like to the extent that Ethereum continues to develop, DAOs are inevitable because if you become this sort of like essential infrastructure, people are not going to trust you if there's like some obscure centralized party that's the only one that can deploy funds or upgrade the protocol, right? And so that's like why on-chain governance and Tally exists, is to create sort of like the most secure and like efficient process possible for anyone to be able to um, both upgrade a protocol or stop an upgrade of a protocol.
Yeah, I mean, it does matter. I think after something we talk about all the time is like we've been around banging the drum. I mean, we have for about a year with Tally, and then Dennison and the founders of Tally have been banging the drum forever about it. But it's been interesting to see like the waves of like on-chain governance narratives come and go, and with every scandal, it kind of just becomes more and more cemented in the zeitgeist that like, hey, this is actually something that you have to give a fuck about. And right now, I think if you're listening to this, you've been in that crowd for a while, but I'm starting to see more people kind of join into that crowd, and I think that's not going to change moving forward. The wave, I treated last night like we'll talk about it in a tweet coming up, but like this like it feels like a newer wave of like on-chain governance and like a focus on on-chain governance is coming up, and like I don't think it's going to die. Like waves don't die. This is kind of something that's I feel like is reaching a lot of momentum. As you tell me, like I'm the vibe guy, I got the finger on like the voices of Twitter and what's being said. I'm starting to see a lot of content and thoughts around on-chain governance, or just like on-chain governance without saying on-chain governance, like the concepts of trusting these organizations, without really anybody bringing it up or in response to something we're pushing out, which is pretty cool to see. Whether it's around or credited to us or not, I don't think it matters. I think we're more just happy that it's actually starting to get its flowers.
That's actually an amazing segue. People are starting to come to us. Yeah, some really cool examples of that this week. So Juicebox, which is an amazing like fundraising protocol on it's a like a crypto fundraising protocol. They have modified, or they've added on-chain governance as a feature, and they have deployed that contract in such a way that the governance tokens are compatible with Tally. So hopefully we'll see people doing these fundraising projects, turning them into a DAO vehicle and using Tally. Absolutely. We love the Juicebox team, by the way. Like the person who tweeted this, Briley, is kind of like I think her partner, to Briley and her partner are sort of like the Tommy and Frisson of Juicebox. And they crush it. They do an amazing job. So, maybe Juice News DAO Talk cast coming up. We'll see.
That's a little tease. I think you tweeted about it, so I think we can announce that it's gonna happen.
It's gonna be soon TM, because Tommy and I are both like pretty deep underwater with ETH Denver. So soon TM, maybe Q2.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, on that, like, we haven't had many interviews come out lately. We've kind of just been shipping DAO Talk Weekly and working behind the scenes. But if you're listening to this and you're at ETH Denver, come see Frisson or I, and we'll have a little special surprise for you. We got some cool merch coming, and we're just excited to see everyone at ETH Denver and further these collaborations of people kind of coming to Tally and building without us actually having to say anything or do anything. So coming from the team, though, an absolutely amazing feature that we've talked about the past couple of weeks around the delegations portal, the delegations explore page. A tweet from Tajark 3As, I think from Pull Together, if I'm not mistaken. Community and Pull Maxi at Pull Together tweeted, I like this Tally feature. Spotted as, or one, he tagged as one of his friends, spotted as trending delegate on Pull Together. So if you're not watching, I would encourage you to either go into the show notes and just click the link to this tweet, or just go to tally.xyz and check out the trending delegates page for whatever DAO. It's a absolutely amazing feature, and this is just one part of it. You can see the trending delegates for that DAO, and you can kind of for this particular picture here, there's not any bios provided for these profiles because they haven't added them. But there's not much to say here. I fucking love this.
Yeah. By the way, Naber, the training delegate, needs to update his bio on Tally so that he can fully flex himself as a trending delegate. But yeah, this is just part of like we've been talking about the delegation features that Tally has been releasing. This is a sick little like bonus feature we plugged in there where you can go to the DAO page. In this case, you can go to Pool Together's DAO page and see who people are delegating to. And why, and then kind of dig in from there. So yeah, slowly we're trying to just like Pool Together is a great example of a DAO that's been around for a long time. They're like an OG DeFi project, and they have their own governance process, but I think they're slowly starting to use Tally because it's so much easier and there's like so many more features, but it still like retains that like on chain trustlessness. So stoked to hear the positive feedback from Pool Together. Shout out.
Yeah, something like we talked about earlier on about like that social integration of the Tally API and that idea of just like surfacing relevant information and kind of connecting all the dots between all of like the fragmentation around like DAOs and DAO conversations. I think this goes a long way, and kind of we're putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to like building the things DAOs need and individuals need to feel more connected to the DAO and more connected to the process. And I think this is, for me at least, something like I have like direct experience with when I first started in the space, and got airdrop tokens from, I think it was like ENS, and trying to figure out what the fuck delegation was and who should I be delegating to. And yeah, this would have gone a long way in helping me with that process. And I'm excited to see where the product team takes this feature moving forward, because it is something that is literally, we talk about it every day and there's feedback around it every day and it's improving every day. So really excited to see where the delegation portal goes from there. Another big announcement is sudoswap DAO went live on Tally this week. Frisson is well versed in the sudoswap world, and it was super pumped to see them launch on Tally this week. Frisson, give them a little background on what sudoswap is. You don't gotta go too deep on that, and how excited you are to have them on Tally, part of the Tally fam.
Yeah, the DAO Talk fam has probably had enough of me yammering on about protocols, so I'll keep this one short. They, provide more of like a decentralized exchange type model for exchanging NFTs, where people provide liquidity by like putting their NFTs in a sudoswap pool, and then people exchange through that. It's a sweet model. It got a lot of traction like into the early fall, and is still a big player in the NFT ecosystem. And yeah, it was really cool. Like the team, we've tried to make onboarding to Tally really easy, and the team, like the Sudoswap team, they just like integrated Tally and launched our DAO in Tally without talking to us, which is awesome. That's like what we love to see. But I was so stoked when I saw it, and we've been chatting with them since, and like making some tweaks to the product and their DAO page to make it work even better for them. But yeah, if you are an NFT degen, if you are a Sudoswap user, an XMON holder, and you want to participate in governance, go check it out. You can claim your pseudo token, which is a governance token, in an airdrop, and then you can like delegate to someone else, or you can participate in governance yourself. So shout out to the sudoswap DAO. Thanks for choosing Open Zeppelin Governor and like implementing a really cool trustless governance model, and also trusting us to be your front end for that. Hell yeah.
My only question is, who's next? Who wants to join the Tally fam next? Like,
Dude, it's hard to say, man. Like it could be anyone, it could be a huge DAO. It could be a small tiny DAO that just like starts with trustless governance and then grows exponentially from there. Could be all of the above. We'll find out.
when is the Pudgy Penguins? When are they coming to Tally?
Dude, I should hit them up. Be like, when Pudgy DAO,
Aren't they under new leadership recently? Shouldn't they?
They are. A lot of these NFT projects have kind of converged on like a more centralized model, which is interesting. Nouns being like the sort of counterpoint to that. But yeah, I think Pudgy Penguins have more of like that approach where there's like a centralized leadership team, but then the community is still involved in lots of stuff and shaping the direction. But I still think they should consider deploying a DAO. It doesn't have to like the DAO can like focus on, it doesn't have to focus on like the same thing the leadership team is focusing on. So maybe I'll hit them up. But yeah, I don't think they're in DAO mode at this exact moment.
If you are just a DAO Talk listener and you're not on Twitter, which I think there might be someone out there, and you just know Frisson from his actual face, Frisson is more widely known for his PFP, his profile picture on Twitter, which is a beautiful penguin with a red do-rag and a Hawaiian shirt on.
Yeah,
That's what we're
hashtag
talking about.
red rags forever. Also, that's a Miami Vice shirt, not a Hawaiian
sorry,
shirt.
Miami Vice. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Don't
you should
cancel me.
You should probably quit DAO Talk and replace yourself with someone else. I'm not gonna tell my red rag fam about that. We'll keep that.
We won't bring attention to it on the. We won't put a timestamp on that in the show notes because I'm the one who does that. So stay away. But all right, let's wrap this episode up. We've talked about it a lot in the past couple months, but ETH Denver, we are in the month of ETH Denver, or at least the beginning of ETH Denver, because it's end of February, early March. But speaking of ETH Denver, we are throwing an amazing event that we would love to have any of our DAO Talk listeners at. It's called DAOs at Denver. It's an offshoot of DAO NYC, which was our flagship event in New York City last June, where we just have a bunch of DAO creators, DAO thinkers, DAO builders, and operators join us for an intimate day of DAO conversation, connections, networking, etc. And this is no different. A little bit smaller, a little bit smaller scale, a little bit less sponsorship, but it's going to be just as fun, just as invigorating, stimulating conversation, great networking opportunities. And if you went to DAO NYC and you felt the vibes of DAO NYC, that was arguably like the most common feedback was just how I hate saying vibes again, but like just vibey it was. It was a very like laid back atmosphere. It was very open to everyone, very diverse. That's going to be the same situation at DAOs at Denver. So if you're interested in attending, slide into either one of our DMs. Maybe we'll hit you up with a code to go. But yeah, Frisson, any thoughts on this? This is kind of your baby. You've been doing a lot of work on this. Anything you want to tell the DAO Talk listeners about DAOs at Denver?
No, it's going to be great. Just a nice half-day event, in the afternoon, February 28th, Source Hotel Ballroom. Come check it. These are great teams. We're going to be talking DAO stuff. You want to hear the latest and the greatest, the newest, come check it out. DAOs at Denver. See you in Denver.
It's going to be a great time. Sponsors are Boardroom, Tally, DAO Lens, Metacartel, and Consensus, the big five of DAOs at Denver. So looking forward to seeing you there. I'll be seeing Frisson there in person. It'll be great. It'll be a great time. I'm excited for ETH Denver.
Yeah, the homie Jasmine from Boardroom, who's not really on Twitter, but that's because she's cooler than us, which is fine. She's a DJ. She's putting together a playlist. So we got that. To look forward to. It's going to be a good time.
Excited about it. But yeah, that's been episode number 33 of DAO Talk. It's pretty wild. We've done 33 episodes. We're coming up on a year. Like we're over halfway of doing a year of this shit. So it's pretty exciting. We're still in the bear, but maybe not. As we're recording, we're kind of pumping right now. Dude, so we'll see.
We're gonna lap the first episode annually, and it's gonna be like when we come out of the bear market, and that'll be a wild time. Probably gonna get loose on that one, the 1 year anniversary. Maybe we should invite the homies. I don't know.
We should have like a group cast, a little group podcast. But I've been thinking
some content guild, some Denison, some Shannon.
Maybe that'll be when Vitalik joins us.
Yeah, probably Vitalik. Dude, by the way, there's gonna be a new Tally employee making an appearance on DAO Talk. So got that.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. That's very true. You get to meet one of the main chefs. The chefs behind the kitchen just cooking up greatness.
I always try to let him cook for sure. He's been cooking on the Tally API, so we're gonna talk a little more about that.
It's gonna be dope. Yeah, I've been thinking like a lot because I just look at all the stats from DAO Talk. We have about 50 consistent weekly listeners. Maybe it's 45 if there's double listens, but It doesn't seem like a lot compared to other podcasts, but like if we got all of them in a room, like it would be kind of sick, you know? And I
That would
think,
be dope. Next time we should throw a party at ETH Denver. We
yeah,
already have too many parties at ETH Denver. Can't do anymore.
if
Like
we,
the DAO Talk Spectacular,
yeah,
just for the homies. It's like it's not a huge crew, but it's got the. I bet I would like all of them. It's
yeah.
pretty good time.
I think there's going to be a good amount of like informal side quests at ETH Denver. Nothing really planned, just kind of spur of the moment because we've been doing so much fucking planning. But it's going to be a good time. I'm excited to meet some DAO Talk listeners in person, and just
Yeah,
have a good time.
if you wanna see Tommy get a tramp stamp live at ETH Denver, then hit him up. That's gonna be one of the side quests.
Yeah, I
It's
don't.
just a tally logo.
It's Denison's CryptoPunk, and it's Denison's CryptoPunk and Frisian's Penguin in like a heart. That's what I'm gonna do. But no,
You're
I'm
definitely gonna regret that.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But I am getting a tattoo. I think I'm getting one of my PFP. So keep you all
But
posted.
we don't know where yet. Maybe just a full chest
Can you
spread
imagine?
with like dark mode, yeah, with a black background, and then just
It's gonna take
yep.
me 3 days and $8,000 to get that. But
You're gonna like yeah, you're gonna get that and then like at mention LDF and be like, look, got a tattoo of my PFP, and then she's gonna block you. And you're gonna be like, ooh, start Googling tattoo removal services.
I can't breathe. I go on Twitter. She got blocked by LDF. I hope she would never do that, but yeah, that'd be a little extreme. Oh my god! All right, let's end on that note. It's been a great episode. Dow Talk Weekly, episode 33. We will see you next week. As always, subscribe to dowtalk.substack.com to get the written version of this newsletter in your inbox every week. We have way more subscribers on the newsletter than we do weekly listens on this podcast. So it's popping off over there. Yeah, otherwise, see you next week. Frisson. Peace.
Peace.